There were 10 of us in the lawyer's office when my mother laughed, not smiled, lawed. She leaned back in her chair and looked around the room, as though someone had just told a joke she had been waiting 18 years to hear. Your father left you nothing, she said. He hated you for 18 years. Nobody corrected her. I looked at the lawyer. Mr. Bennett had been reading through a stack of documents without much expression. He was an older man with silver hair and the habit of removing his glasses whenever he wanted someone to understand that what he was about to say mattered. He didn't remove them. Instead, he reached beneath the papers and took out a sealed brown envelope. My father's name was written across it. The handwriting was unmistakable. My mother stopped laughing. Mr. Bennett opened the envelope carefully. He took out 2 sheets of paper. He read the first line silently, then he looked at me, not my mother me. He pushed the papers across the table. I didn't touch them. My uncle, who hadn't spoken to me in 13 years, leaned forward. Open it, he whispered. Then, after a pause, he added, but not in front of her. My mother stared at him. Excuse me, he didn't answer. I picked up the letter, my hands were steady, which surprised me. For 18 years I had heard the same story. My father had never wanted me. I was difficult, ungrateful, too sensitive when I was 17. After an argument I barely remembered anymore. My mother told me that Dad had said I was no longer his problem. I believed her, not because I trusted her completely, because children usually don't have another version of the truth. I left home at 19. My father never called, I never called him. And eventually, silence became easier than wondering why. The first line of the letter was simple. I did not hate you. I stopped reading. Across the table, my mother whispered, This is ridiculous. Mr. Bennett finally removed his glasses. Mrs. Hayes, I recommend that you allow him to finish. The room went quiet. I kept reading. My father wrote that he had spent years believing I had deliberately betrayed him during a family dispute. Then he wrote that he eventually learned he had been given false information. Not completely false. That was what made the letter difficult. Some things had happened. But the version I had been told was not the version he discovered later. He admitted that he had been too proud to investigate sooner, too angry to ask me directly. And by the time he understood what had happened, he said he didn't know how to approach me without admitting how badly he had failed. The letter wasn't an apology that erased everything. It was worse. It was honest. He wrote about seeing my name occasionally, hearing about my work, wondering whether I had forgiven him, and then came the sentence that made me put the paper down. If you believe I rejected you because you were not worth loving, then I failed you twice. Nobody spoke. My mother reached for the letter. I moved it away. She stared at me. You're letting him manipulate you even after he's dead. I looked at her. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to prove she was wrong. Mr. Bennett opened another folder. There is one more matter. He explained that my father had left instructions concerning a portion of the estate that had been deliberately separated from the main will. It wasn't everything. It wasn't some enormous fortune. It was a house. The small house where my father had lived during the final years of his life. And there was a condition. I had the right to decide what happened to it. My mother immediately objected. That house was supposed to go to the family. Mr. Bennett looked at his documents. It was not. She turned toward me. You don't even want it. I didn't answer. My uncle finally spoke. She doesn't have to want it. My mother looked at him with genuine disbelief. You stayed out of this for 13 years. I know. His voice was quiet. I was wrong. That was all he said. No grand speech, no excuse. Just 4 words. I looked down at my father's letter again. For 18 years, I had carried one question inside me. What was wrong with me that my father could hate me so easily? That afternoon, I realized I had been asking the wrong question. The question wasn't what was wrong with me. It was why I had allowed someone else's judgment to become evidence against myself. The lawyer began explaining the legal process. I listened, my mother interrupted twice. I didn't argue with her either time. When the meeting ended, everyone stood slowly. People avoided looking at one another. My mother remained seated. I folded my father's letter and placed it inside my bag. As I reached the door, she said my name. I stopped. For a second, I thought she might apologize. She didn't. You really think this changes everything? I looked back at her. No, I said. And that was the truth. It didn't change everything. It couldn't return 18 years. It couldn't turn my father into the man I had needed when I was young. It couldn't make my mother admit what she had done. But it changed one thing. I no longer had to spend the rest of my life wondering whether I had been rejected because I wasn't worth keeping. I walked out of the office carrying a letter from a man who had failed me. Not a victory, not forgiveness, just the truth. And, for the first time, the truth was enough.